Right. Welcome here. I'd like to start the meeting off with a welcome to everyone. We have the Environment Committee meeting for October 16th, 2023, 2:30 p.m. And just like to acknowledge with respect that we're meeting on the traditional territory of the Lungawangan speaking people and are honored to have the opportunity to build strong working relationships with the people of the Songhees and the Kosapsun nations. The first item, I think here we have approval of the agenda. So the Environment Committee meeting agenda for October 16, 2023, recommendation that the agenda for the Environment Committee meeting be adopted as presented. Need a motion, right, for that? Motion, do we need? Lois, second, do we need it? No, no second, we're good. All those in favor? Passed, unanimous. And the minute meeting, Environment Committee meetings from June 19, 2023, recommend that they be adopted as presented. Motion? No one? Pamela? Second? No, no second needed. All those in favor? Unanimous, passed. We have an opportunity here for public participation. If there's anyone online or in the room? No. So that speeds us along. I'd like to maybe make a comment right now. And really what I'd like to do is that I was speaking with Mayor Kobayashi a little bit before the meeting and the discussion about our committee and the business around the fact that it's an advisory committee and how we can move forward with recommendations, et cetera. And we are working on that. And I thought that it would, his comment was that in the new year, we may have an opportunity to look over the terms of reference and maybe make a few changes if necessary. So that's something to think about. That's all I'm saying here today. And also, I'd like to invite you to take part or the meetings, the service review and budget meetings are open to the public, and for good reason. It helps perhaps give you a better insight into how these elements within the council and the staff in working together, it moves forward the city business. It might just help you out with that. So if you would like to just think about those things and how you might participate that way, is, open invitation. That's, I think, really all I wanted to say. So we could, then we can just move on with business. Let's try to, I'd like to try to keep this meeting not too formal. It is a committee meeting. We're allowed to chat. So we can keep it moving along. And we'll start with our new business, 5.1. So Carolyn Richman, our climate planner, is going to present for us an overview of the Colwood Climate Action Plan. Thanks, Carolyn.
Thank you for having me today and the opportunity to give an overview of the new Climate Action Plan, the process, and where we're going right now with this. So this presentation is the same, pretty much the same as the one that I gave council, but I'm going to give a little bit more detail and the post endorsement position that we're in right now and the work that we're doing. And we'll look forward to all the questions afterwards. So, all right, so I think it's important to put this work into context, but I'm sure I don't have to remind members of this committee that we're in a climate emergency and that this climate action plan is in the context of this urgent threat to human well-being and the health of the planet, that this is a rapidly closing window of opportunity for a sustainable future, and Colwood's role in what we need to do to move that way. So Colwood has taken an active role in climate leadership already, but there is a lot more we can do, and that we intend to do in as quickly as possible. So I should have updated this slide from going to council, but generally following the same content provided to council, just a quick overview of the development process of this plan, and the update of the 2 documents that went to council, and then finally the endorsement and next steps after that. That will be generally my presentation today before discussions. So this is the image of the overview of the process for the climate action plan. I think that probably some or all of you were probably involved in that. And just as a good reminder of these phases, since February 2022, there was that preparation work that occurred with consultants and staff and whatnot, and information gathering. There was a more intense engagement phase where public surveys happened, along with including with the Royal Bay secondary students, 3 stakeholder workshops, and then the results of those were analyzed, and planning and assessments and priorities, staff reviews, consultant reviews resulted in that draft plan that went to council in February, and then where we are now. So yeah, February 14th was when council received the first draft climate action plan and endorsed it to move forward for public engagement. And that resulted in a survey and feedback that was received from residents and organizations, stakeholders, that we then had a look at. So that's kind of where I came in after that process wrapped up in my new role here. But just, we had some excellent and detailed feedback that came in through that process. So lots of detail, but summarize them down to these are 3 of the top themes that we heard throughout that feedback that we received. That there was strong support and sense of urgency for this work. The feedback that the plan needed some revisions to be more accessible in terms of its length and the presentation of data, just to be clear. And the third theme we heard a lot was just the importance of the natural environment needing to be increased in the final plans. So those nature-based solutions having a strong role. So from those revisions, or from that, we made some revisions. It was reviewed by, so after that review, we convened, the Colwood Climate Action Team, which has been a really important capacity building piece within staff and across departments. So this climate action team has even been growing since the climate action plan was endorsed. This team is helping us to integrate this topic across departments and to figure out how we can best implement this climate action plan and make use of all the opportunities we have and integrate decision making with climate action. So the results of all of those reviews was what came forward to council at the end of August. The original climate action plan was edited for clarity and with all the feedback and made into that foundations report, the Climate Planning Foundations report. So we still have captured all that good planning, the data, all those scenarios and information that went through in that original process, and then the final climate action plan. And the goal of that climate action plan as it was revised was to make sure that the plan is direct and accessible, engaging and readable. So for residents as well as for staff who need to implement it. We needed clear actions and defined priorities. And in order that we make the plan implementation ready. This image just to get into some of the elements of the climate action plan shows that the plan follows best practices, which are to integrate climate mitigation and adaptation, also considering the co-benefits of these actions for community health and well-being. So this integrated approach helps us to avoid things like unintended negative consequences if we're only planning for mitigation, say, and we're not doing that as a integrated approach, but also in mainstreaming and integrating this work so that we're embedding it into our decision making and our wider projects across departments. The original plan didn't identify overarching goals, so we did that in the revised plan. Those 3 goals are represented here. So reducing emissions to net zero by 2050 or sooner, probably underlining or sooner if possible. Build climate resilience. So that's the adaptation piece, adapting to thrive, and maximizing co-benefits while we're doing those things. This is the framework for the climate action plan. That overarching vision and 3 goals are supported by 6 pathways. Originally there were 5, expanded to 6 pathways that include 17 strategies and all the action items under those. So these are the revised pathways. The municipal leadership piece brought together all of those parts of the action and targets that really speak to what Colwood can do as a municipal leader and getting our own house in order and just adjusting ourselves corporately to be able to do this work. Transportation and complete communities, buildings and infrastructure, those are critical pieces that you find in climate action plans. Biodiversity and nature-based solutions. We are seeing that very clearly in newer plans. That is, very much on the table as a really important piece. And understanding that biodiversity crisis is interwoven and interconnected with the climate crisis. And if we're not pulling those together and dealing with those together, then we're not going to be successful. So that is an integrated part of this plan. Food and zero waste go really well together in a pathway. And then we added community well-being and brought forward that eco-innovation piece together with that. What we heard from council was needing that big overarching pathway of communications, which is woven throughout the plan, but also needs to be based on that importance of communications and engagement. So yes, partnerships being really, really critical in this. Colwood has already been building many partnerships on different levels for climate action, but it's something that we need to do more, deeper, in order to be successful. So this is internal and external across our region and beyond, with First Nations and linked with reconciliation for sure. And, many, many stakeholders and key organizations that we need to be prepared to work closely with for this important work. So this is the motion that passed at council, that they endorsed the climate action plan and the Climate Planning Foundation's report for master planning purposes. There was an additional motion for the communications piece to be brought in as a stronger whole pathway. And there was some good discussion about, is it possible to move our net zero goals faster to 2040? So definitely staff will be looking at how fast can we go and what can we do. We're really communicating to council that a climate action plan needs to be a living document. We need to be able to be nimble and update this with new information and research and opportunities, and do the best we can with where we're at continually. So that's kind of the summary of where we're at. We are actively working on some top priority actions and implementation, drafting an implementation plan, then a communications and engagement plan, and bringing that back to council so we can have some clear direction on that. But there is always work actively going on. Never enough time to do it all, but we're doing our very best to move quickly on this topic. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Carolyn. That's awesome. Really great outline of what we're looking at. I think that we're trying to move here today to an endorsement, is that right, of the climate action plan. I know that it's already, we're kind of moving behind the scenes. But is that what we're looking for here from the council? We're just talking about this at this point, right? So I would just like to say, though, that that is kind of the way we're looking at it, is that we want to move this forward. It's already moving forward, but we're here to discuss and have answered questions for any of you on the committee so that you have an opportunity to speak. Please use your microphone. You can, oh, it's alive. I didn't even know. I thought that everybody was just going to do it separate like last time. Okay, never mind. Yeah, right. Gotcha. Then it turns red. Now you love it.
So first, I'd like to commend the municipal staff on their work, especially in the appendices, for their information indicating the urgency of taking immediate action to help mitigate the effects of the climate crisis we find ourselves in. It was very clear that a lot of effort was put into informing us and the community at large, and I did see some terrific goals on how things should be. I'd also like to thank the council and staff for giving us this opportunity to ask you questions and, provide hopefully some feedback. And looking at this, and I am somewhat new to Colwood, the question and constructive feedback I have about this is that while this is called a climate action plan, and it discusses the climate crisis and goals that we want to achieve, I didn't see a lot of, I know you did mention that there, and I did see some actions in there, but I'm curious about an actual actionable plan. As a truly amazing environmental advocate that we have in our community says, this plan, as with several others out there, is sort of missing its teeth for us. And by that we mean, what I really wonder is how easy is it for one council to not do anything to implement these goals because they don't want to raise taxes. And then they just pass it on to the next council group. I don't understand quite where the funding is coming from. For example, the council was opposed to us even hearing about the Sue Big Oil campaign and having big oil companies pay their fair share for damages, just as the entire state of California just signed on to this. The fear I have is that this climate action plan can simply be passed on, and it just goes on and on and on. And how many years can we continue this path of inaction before it becomes too late? So, the major pieces that I've distinguished in these documentations is I don't see a plan for how the initiatives that are mentioned will be paid for and when they're going to happen, nor do I see any exactly too many statements addressing issues concerning accessibility, equity, or accountability. I didn't see an actual timeline anywhere for implementation for many of the initiatives mentioned. So, again, when are we going to implement? And I know you just mentioned this, the zero carbon step code. That just got delayed again. We, did the presentation and it was delayed, a decision on that. So for me, what I would love to see is maybe even just a table in there with the specific issue, specific solutions, a column for accessibility and equity considerations, cost, how things are going to be funded, when and how things could be possibly fast-tracked, who is going to be supporting, coordinating, and working on these solutions, and accountability. How do we ensure accountability that these actions are even going to happen? And I don't want to take up too much more time. I do have specific questions and comments also from Scenic for various pages of the foundation's plan. And so I can submit that to you, when you'd like. Just questions we had looking, taking a close look through all of the documentation. So I guess that's.
Can you speak in response? I think you're welcome to find questions in there that I don't.
There are a lot of questions.
Yeah.
Thank you for your questions.
In a general way.
Yes, through the chair. I think I'm hearing a lot of questions speaking to, just that urgency and that needing to know how and moving along for sure. And these are important things. So just some things that might be helpful. In terms of how it's paid for, the report that went to council specified that we do have a climate reserve fund and identified that money coming from the province that we get annually, adding to that through the budget process, such as the one that's coming up, and grant applications. So there's active work on that budget process. And then that links in with the implementation. So staff are working actively on an implementation plan. This is the overarching umbrella that guides the actual nitty-gritty of the work. It's not meant to be, the nitty-gritty comes in the action plan. So the table in the back identifies the action items that staff will then be planning and implementing. But some of those details will come through in an implementation plan to council. And each action item in the plan right now does have some timeframes. So you can see each one has, that are happening within the next 2023 to 2025, for example, though that's when that action item will be occurring. And so we do have some of those timelines, but again, some more detailed information coming in the implementation plan. There's an action item specifically speaking to equity and developing an equity lens and tools that would inform all of our work. So that would be addressed through doing that action item and integrating that into our work. And I'm not sure, Ian, if you have any additional thoughts you want to add to that.
Thank you. Yeah, I would have echo Chair Grove's comments regarding our upcoming budget and service review process. Appendix A to the Climate Action Plan, as Carolyn mentioned, outlines all of the different expected timelines and internal leads for these different action items. We're going to be bringing forward an initial proposal to council as part of this year's service review that will highlight several of these along with a proposed budget. So that's an opportunity really for the community to get a first look at how we're approaching this ahead of an implementation plan also coming to council.
Yeah, no, that helps. I do have specific questions about specific pages, but I have a lot, so I don't know what the best way is to approach that.
Why don't we come around again? We can do that, and I'll let Karen perhaps speak next. You had others waiting in line here, so okay, Karen. Whoops. There you go.
Thanks, David. And Carolyn, thank you for all your work. I haven't prepared any notes. I did respond to all the surveys and participated in some stakeholder meetings. And I'm really happy to see the evolution of the Climate Action Plan, starting with the title. So I think the first edition was called Low Carbon Resilience. I think climate action is far more direct. I think the plan is more accessible, readable. I hope that because cost is, of course, going to be what stops action. And so I really hope that you and your climate action team are able to create a culture of the benefits of all this work, because, and of course, the cost is obvious if we don't undertake it. I think of those pathways, municipal leadership is probably the most critical. The buildings, transportation, those will eventually happen through provincial initiatives. To have municipalities more engaged is critical, and this comes from leadership. And so you mentioned embedding the plan into all departments. And what I see this would accomplish is removing a political obstacle, because this council has been very forward thinking about completing the plan and then implementing it. And when we have an election in 3 years' time, if the newly elected council decides that no, they want to go in a different direction, all this work is for naught. So my question would be, who's on your climate action team, and is the best way forward for us to ensure this plan is not tossed out in a few years' time, is that to show up to the service review and budget meetings and speak on behalf of the plan? Thanks.
Thank you for your comments and your questions through the chair. So one of the questions you had was who is on the climate action team, and I would say we have representatives from, I believe, every single department now, and that is a lot of leadership as well as key staff who are leading critical parts of initiatives within the plan. So that's our internal climate action team. It's very much a team approach, and the leadership being spread across different departments for this work. I just would note that there are requirements of municipalities to do some of this work that go beyond beyond mayor and council to provincial requirements and whatnot. So some of the things that we're responding to in here are things that we're required to do as a municipality. We get funding every year from the province, and we need to have a climate action plan in place to receive that funding, and certain things happening to continue to receive that funding. So I'm not sure if that's helpful to know that some of this work is firmly embedded in that relationship as well. And in terms of showing up to service review and whatnot, I think, Ian had recommended that and can maybe expand on that. Maybe in terms of best way forward, I'll just punt that one over to Ian to expand on that.
Sure. Thank you, Carolyn. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of work in this plan. I think really right now we're trying to focus on prioritization. There are some elements of the plan that we feel need to be addressed immediately. Those include things like operational changes to how we can support teams and how we can support decision makers such as committees and council in the actual implementation of this plan. So we're working on that now. As I said, there's a huge body of work to tackle here, so it's going to be a challenge for this community to put resources towards it. We're trying to, as I said, do that in the most efficient way possible. The service review is, I just think it's a fantastic opportunity for any constituent to come look at how council's priorities are being approached, the proposals from the municipal administrative and staff team, to action council's various intents for changes in the community. All of it comes together in a series of meetings coming up next month. So it's just a fantastic opportunity for folks to see how we're approaching things and give feedback directly to council on their priorities and how they're being carried out.
Thank you very much, both of you, on that answer is good. I would add my own comment that when an early conversation with our CA, Mr. Robert Earl, is in the room, he when I mentioned to him about the 9 months I was giving myself to learn the job, he said, well, you know, 2 budget cycles, 2 service review cycles, it's really helps you get your handle on it. And it's, I have to say, sitting here today, having gone through this past year and the service review a year ago, I have a much better idea of what's coming, and I can see how powerful a process that can be. So I'm just encouraging everyone here to be involved in that, to see further what goes on. I think, Robert, you were right. It's more than a year. The second cycle really starts to make sense, and you get a feeling of what can be done. Devon, I've got your mic already active. Somehow I hit that button last time. So if you just want to carry on, that'd be great.
Thanks there, David.
Next.
Thanks, Ian and Carolyn, for coming in to speak with us today. It was great to hear your approach. I did take a glance at the document. It is fairly comprehensive, and it's nice to see that thorough work, thorough forethought into these documents. So I appreciate that. In terms of like endorsing it this meeting, I would personally would like some time to review it further. So it was properly vetted, and maybe I could offer endorsement in February or sooner. I'll pass the mic to David here.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, thank you. And I think that the endorsement question, I saw that come up somewhere, but that was a note to previous, that was probably to council. I lose track of the timelines on these things. So we're not looking for any formal endorsement today.
Okay, can I continue?
Yes, please do.
Thanks. So it is a very great document. It has triggered some questions. Just hearing you speak and hearing others today. The first thing I'd like to discuss is in your pathways, was there any consideration into business-based solutions? Often when I think about strategic reviews, I think about rate of return or return on investment. And I think with the advent of solar panels, heat pumps, and other kind of renewable kind of sources of energy available today, I think that would be a nice thing to have for the community, whether it's commercial, residential, industrial. But it's one of my frustrations with climate action is that, you know, we hear things about carbon capture when we have proven solutions that can be implemented today. And, you know, whether it's grants or rebates or whatnot, I think that is a nice program to encourage. And I know with other local governments, net metering is also a topic that's has considerable airplay. And so I think that's a way to kind of be more strategic in terms of business-based solutions would be my recommendation as a pathway. And then I'll just sidebar on one other point I'd like to make. A lot of municipalities are often getting emergency program coordinator positions, and these positions are often through grants through the provincial government. And I think when we look at the servicing of these action items, I think there's a lot of other kind of solutions being used in other municipalities that I think the Colwood could benefit from. And I'll leave it at that. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Devon. And Charlotte.
Thank you for giving us the overview and the presentation and helping us understand a little bit more the nuts and bolts of this plan. I'm interested in the partnership aspect and working collaboratively with other parts of the system, particularly BC Transit and BC Hydro. So any strategies that we develop here and action will impact other agencies. And I'm just wondering how you can you just tell me a little bit more about how that works?
Thanks for the question through the chair. There are a number of ways that we are already very much working in partnership on things like this. For example, we have the intermunicipal working group of local governments across the region. And we have partners, as you say, like BC Transit and BC Hydro that, you know, I believe we have leadership that meets with BC Transit towards some of the actions that you'll see in this plan and others to increase and improve transit services. BC Hydro tends to be something, a partner that we work with, but through the province and the region and whatnot. So we'll have to see how that unfolds. Ian might have some more information on that, but just, all the way across, we doing this work, we are working constantly with we can't work just in amongst ourselves. We have to work constantly with all of these different partners across the region, across the province. And I'm headed to Kamloops tomorrow to do just that with other local governments and provincial representatives, because we're all trying to put our heads together and find the best ways forward. And that, having that those municipal voices and processes at the table is critical, so that, we've had some of those meetings in the past with the provincial representatives and the new Climate Action Secretariat that's just trying to understand what some of our particular municipal challenges and opportunities are and how we can work together to further those. I think these are really critical things, part of our work that we do. But just considering that you asked about those two partners, and just check in with Ian might have a few tidbits to add on that.
Thanks, Carolyn. No, I think that sums up what I was thinking. We do have very good relationships with both those entities that were mentioned. Ongoing discussions on the strategic level. We do have contacts at various organizations that have bearing on the work we're doing in climate. With respect to hydro, we have a local liaison, Ted Olnick, who actually presented to council, I believe it was last year, and is available for ongoing work with Colwood and the community. So certainly if there's questions that we can direct through to hydro, we can use that liaison position as a resource.
Good, Sean. Yeah, that's great. Thank you very much, Ian and Carolyn. Pamela's got some questions. I understand we can maybe go around again. And this is good. I think we have time. It's only 10 after 3. Whoop. There we go.
Yeah, no, and if I am taking up too much time, please, stop me. So this tracks a little bit along lines with the question that was just answered, and also with your comments about how things were getting paid for in a budget. So on page 121, I'm going to just kind of start working my way backwards, I guess, on the foundations. There is that table of incremental capital costs. And I was wondering, was volunteerism thoroughly explored and taken into account for some of those costs? I'm aware that Scenic made a request and even suggested a single part-time volunteer. The idea was rejected due to the high cost to the city. Scenic saw and still sees the logic for this decision at this time, but if an action could be taken right now to hire a part-time coordinator, such as the position in View Royal, the volunteer part-time staff could coordinate a multitude of volunteer opportunities, such as demonstrated by Friends of Havenwood Park and outside groups such as the Green Team. Scenic is asking the city to reconsider based on a part-time position of 15 to 20 contract hours per week. So can we even do that little bit now within the budget that you guys have? Scenic would also like to know what the status of consideration for Colwood climate action property tax surcharge to deal with the incredible challenges that we're facing. I didn't see any mention of anything like that, so I was curious. So that's my first question.
Excuse me, Carolyn, I'll just jump in quick on one item, and that is that the Green Team is working with Cablecraft, the developer, believe it or not, who's offered to pay and has developed a relationship. And I believe they're coming to a term so that they will be more active there. I was also approached on Saturday. We're at a forum by a councillor from Langford who's interested in seeing if we can get to work together a bit more on some community gardens. We're also looking at possibly expanding the community garden into another location. And those that work is forthcoming. We're working on it. So in behind the scenes, there's these little things that happen, and I like those two in particular because of the efficiency of them. The fact that a business enterprise is funding the bill for that. It's actually a relationship with them, but it's on city property that it's working with. Green Team has to work on public land. So those little elements are coming along nicely. So I just thought I'd throw that in quick because it's quite recent.
Yeah, that's great news. Is there anybody in the city who's coordinating that? Is there an actual person designated to coordinate?
Yeah, well, I'm kind of involved,
Oh,
and
okay.
I work with various staff people that are assigned. Like I don't know how that works. I go to this to the city, and then I get support back, and information comes back. So they are involved. I don't know how they perform their magic behind the scenes. So I did.
you.
So something more formal may evolve, and may I also speak maybe to this volunteer. So I don't need to answer all these questions, but the volunteerism, it did come to council and it was requesting full-time equivalent. I think everybody's a bit unsure about the cost. And again, it's most of the councils are quite new. So I'm confident that the support for such a thing may come through. I know for myself, I will be a lot more confident coming up in this next service review and budget process. And that the idea of a lot of volunteerism coordination with the city communications. I know people like Sandra work very quite a bit with these things. Parks, you know, they have these sort of side of desk obligations and responsibilities on all through City Hall. It seems to me that if you add that all up, you'd be able to hire someone to take care of it, certainly part-time and most likely full-time. It's a question of trying to organize it properly. And I think that the movement in that direction is forthcoming. So I'm hoping that will come then now with our next service review and budget process, which is really exciting for me because then also you have someone in City Hall that people can come to directly for all kinds of different things. Yeah. So I think that's all I have to say. Hope I haven't spoken out of turn. I think pretty much what I'm involved with personally and others in council are interested, but of course I can't speak for anyone else. So when that comes to council or when an idea gets to the point where council needs to approve spending, let's say, that will come up on an agenda and that information is forthcoming and the public can participate in that and show support.
Okay, great, thank you.
But anyway, go ahead. Carolyn.
Thank you for the question. I think as I understand it, you're asking about the potential of a position being added and property surcharge, property tax surcharge, and whether that was considered in the foundational process. I was not here at that time, so I'm gonna refer that over to Ian, who may be able to answer that better than me.
Thanks. So through the chair, yeah. So there's some language, as you probably noted in the action plan regarding different tactics municipalities use to support climate action budgets. So I think you're referring to there's examples in Kamloops and District West Vancouver. They're applying specific percentage increases to property taxes to directly fund climate. So those are things that would be discussed as part of our annual budget review. We're not currently proposing that as a specific tactic to fund action. As Carolyn mentioned, there's a reserve fund that's topped up through provincial grants that come every year, as well as the general funding that is highlighted in our budget for specific core activities and supplemental projects as they arise through the financial plan. So that idea would be something that could be proposed to council by a member of the public or interested group at the budget review time. And that would be probably the appropriate the venue to propose that. If a member of the public wanted to make a proposal, staff could help them essentially put that forward at the appropriate meeting ahead of the budget.
Great, thank you. My next question is on pages 43 and 55. The goal of electrifying passenger vehicles is stated. And this is probably the most important goal of the entire cap there, because that's where most of our GHGs are coming from. So what is the exact plan and timeline to actually do this? What concrete incentives and programs will be in place? There was mention of encouraging small business. Is there any plan to encourage small businesses to do, EV conversion kits? Scenic brings up solutions that could be included in the document, such as assistance in retrofitting MERBs with EV chargers, by asking the city to sponsor an energy coach from BC Better Homes, perhaps offer a seminar on the topic to all interested citizens. I know they were trying to organize a show in the parking lot of City Hall on a Sunday, January through February. And to let you guys know, Scenic's also really hoping to partner with the Victoria EV Car Club. So they're hoping to have EV drivers there to answer questions. Are these things that were possibly considered?
Thanks, through the chair. Just a point of clarification. You said page 43 and I went to 43 in both documents, but I'm sorry, maybe I heard that wrong.
I think I have 43 and 55 as having electrifying passenger vehicles as a
In the climate action
goal.
plan or the foundations?
foundations.
Okay. Okay, my
It's just one of
pages
the
must be
goals.
off because
Okay.
this is 43 of the foundation's report in my copy says cost savings considerations.
Oh, okay,
So I'm
sorry, mine might be.
so sorry, I was trying to find that while you were talking and I did catch that you have questions around e-mobility and our planning around that.
Yeah, like what actual solutions have been taken into consideration, and like another actually no cost thing could be to sign on to the fossil fuel non-proliferation treaty. So, are there things that are not mentioned in these plans that are in the background and as you said, the nitty-gritty that are being considered? Or
So in terms of e-mobility, there is in the action plan or in the action table in the back, it calls for an e-mobility strategy where the planning of how we're going to do some of that work would happen in that separate work plan and strategy. So primarily that is, where some of that would land. But I don't know, Ian, if you heard some specific things that we could speak to at this point in time. Sorry, I was trying to find the places and wasn't able to, so.
Yeah, I would really, direct the committee to the appendix A of the action plan to look at what we're proposing and how council's directed us to tackle, so that the actions that are have their the columns darkened, shaded, those are what we see as the top priorities at the moment. The electrifying, as was mentioned, so under municipal leadership, we've got electrify the Colwood fleet, electrify maintenance equipment, and then the e-mobility plan that has been proposed to look at things more broadly. So that's really what we're envisioning as our marching orders ahead of coming up with a more detailed implementation plan.
is there a method by which, people can make recommendations for solutions that are specific to that plan?
Certainly, thank you for that question through the chair. The process as it relates to this plan, I think as Carolyn said, it's a living document. If there's feedback that a member of the community would like to provide to their council to change specifically an aspect of this plan, that could come through council with the request to direct staff to make changes to the climate action plan. That being said, we're hoping that annually we're reviewing for improvements and that come forward to council with a recommendation, which could be informed then by a committee recommendation as well as to how council could approach specific changes on an annual basis to the climate action plan.
If I may, I just to add to what Ian said, in addition, an e-mobility strategy would involve public engagement. So we would be looking at getting that public feedback and engagement on how we do that in order to create and bring that a draft strategy to council. So certainly there will be a lot of ability for involvement in that process.
We'll take a thing from Devon. We'll switch for a bit.
Hi, I was just wondering if you could specifically just talk about the plan in terms of solar panels and heat pumps and wind generation. I saw that in your intro slide that it was like solar panel program was phased out in 2015 or something like that. So I'm just wondering, what is the profile on the plan for those kind of solutions? Thank you.
Thanks for the question through the chair. Specifically, I don't think we have any specific direction from council on that. So we would have to be coming back to council to get more direction through the actions that are in the plan. And certainly I know that we definitely want to maximize whatever we can for renewable energy. It's calling for, that switch to renewable energy. So we'll be looking at all of those things on the table and bringing them to council to see what we can action.
Thank you for that. I might just add that the Victoria Electric Vehicle Association is my old hanging out ground. Was founder and past president. That organization is there for all sorts of events, and they're often looking for host sites. So that's encouraging. The city of Colwood has, through their public works department, inquired of Vic EVA advice on purchase of fleet vehicles over the past 4 years. And more recently, we purchased a battery electric and replaced the Ford F-550 heavy duty dump truck for public works. That we're the first municipality in Canada to purchase a truck of that class for that work. So things are moving forward. We have a Mach-E for the bylaw officer, a new Chevy Bolt, and Lightning pickup trucks, and an e-transit for the irrigation guys that work with irrigation lines for the parks. So without very specific targeted plans, as I see it, they're moving forward. So the intent seems to be embedded there. And I hear your call for the urgency. I hear that from committee members, and I think we all sense it. The IPCC report that came out, was it last year already, which pointed to the urgency of things, seemed to change the dialogue. So trying to speed things up is difficult. Part of it is, of course, finding the money. As we trip our way through this process, trying to find ways to make it better, quicker, I think that we this process helps everybody here on the committee table. So thank you, Carolyn, for the answers, and Ian, it's been really helpful. We'll carry on here for a little bit, and once we've exhausted the questions for this part, we'll then move on to the more specific communications element, the next item on the agenda. But anyway, Karen, would you like to ask a question, please?
Thank you, David. I'm 100% in support of technical change, electric vehicles as opposed to combustion engines. But I think this is more a comment than a question. We run the danger of not looking at the root maybe of the climate crisis, which intersects with the many other crises we face in housing and natural loss of biodiversity, and that is our overconsumption and our exploitation. And I think unless we look at system transformation, we're going to miss the mark.
Thank you, Karen. Do we have any more questions for this, for the agenda for Carolyn? I think we're throwing you into the pot, but trial by fire of the first committee meeting for you. And you're doing a fabulous job. I really appreciate your answers. We can move on to 5.2 then, perhaps. All ready to go and move forward. And to present this portion, we have Carolyn Richman, our climate planner, and Sandra Russell is in the room to help us through this. Are you presenting as well, Sandra? Carolyn's doing a great job, yeah? Yeah. Okay, great. Anyway, please, thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm just going to really quickly kind of recap and the staff report, and then Sandra and I are happy to answer questions to it. So this is a staff report in response to 2 proposals received, letters proposing climate action events and how Colwood might be able to be involved or leading events such as those. So this report provides a little bit of a background on the topic and where we're at and how important these types of partnerships and engagement are to the success of the climate action plan, for sure. So the position that we're in right now is trying to put together as quickly as we can our implementation plan, our communication and engagement plan, and get that direction from council. And we don't have that in place yet. So the proposal from this staff report is recommending that a motion could be made to ask council to consider these ideas within the communication and engagement plan that's coming to council. And there's some other options on there because we recognize there might be timing and other considerations. So just some ideas of options of different ways to approach how to address these ideas. And hopefully these were helpful. And just looking forward to hearing any responses or questions that we might be able to help with further on this.
Thank you very much, Carolyn. So I think here's an opportunity for you to speak to this notion that we're going to follow up. I think Karen and Charlotte, was it your letters that came in suggesting this? And I think it's an event. Actually, I think Sandra, maybe you could speak to this a bit because you, I think, did a brilliant job on the Ideas Fair. You notice the banner behind me here, I think, was a result of some of the input. It's kind of like a final, and this has been a powerful tool. People come in, actually a public too, and they see it and they walk up to it and conversations break out in this corner. It's really a wonderful thing. And that whole experience there at the high school was powerful. So the notion, I think, and how I understand it, and I'm just saying this as a comment really, is that we would have something similar. I don't know if that was planned to be an annual event, but if whenever it's produced, that there's be a large climate action component to it. That's how I understand what members here have discussed and have been talking about. And I know you've got lots to say about it that will help us along. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, the Big Ideas Fair that we had in February was a council initiative that staff helped coordinate. It was well attended and quite successful and returned some really good data for council to take moving forward. So we don't yet have direction from council to undertake that again. We would certainly be willing to do that and have heard loud and clear that environment would be one of the key topics that we would engage people on at an event like that. You know, the city is lucky to have lots of tools at its disposal to engage people. For example, we have a fairly strong program of community events, which we should be, as we develop our communications and engagement plan, we'll be talking about plugging environmental initiatives into each and every one of those events. So for example, the EV Club, as you mentioned, but also having scenic there at times, having Friends of Havenwood and other groups that emerge, community gardening workshops. So the plan is to really use some of the programs that we have in place already to make it a really sustainable operational plan that just becomes part of what we do naturally in everything. Similarly, you had brought up the volunteer engagement plan. So we have a draft volunteer engagement plan in the works that council has reviewed, and we'll be bringing back some more options for how best to implement that in this next service review. And so I hope that we'll find an approach that will help us take our first steps into doing that better than we have, as Chair Grove said, off the sides of many desks. So bringing that together into a unified position would be really helpful so that we can engage people and have them benefit as much as our community benefits. What else did I want to touch on? We have a number of initiatives underway right now that we can also leverage for climate action. For example, we're about to do a household prosperity survey, which is a follow-up to the household prosperity report. And some of the questions that we develop for that survey can be geared toward this work as well. We're going to be doing a website redesign. And so elevating climate action on the new website will also be built in. So I see, myriad ways that we will bring climate action into everything that we do and just, make it a priority throughout. And so Carolyn and I are going to put our heads together and develop a really comprehensive plan for engagement and education and raising awareness, and likely start with a short term. What are we doing now and what can we do better in the short term, but really a longer term for the next, 2, 3, 5 years, where we can really have some innovative ideas to dig in. And so your ideas that you're bringing forward are so very helpful as we do that, and we think about community gardens and we think about litter pickup teams and we think about everything, the business integration that we talk about in eco innovation. And so we are working on it. We're excited about it. We value your ideas, and we look forward to bringing some things forward. I'm happy to answer any questions that overview.
Anybody would like to comment or ask? See Karen reaching for you. Please.
Thanks, Sandra. And I agree with David. You do a remarkable job on the communications piece. And I really hope that climate action becomes a priority on the website and in day-to-day life in Colwood, not just for you staff who have been working so hard at this, but for everyone. And I guess, so my letter to council was regarding a expert panel and an Ask Me Anything forum. And the reason for that was to help create a culture and a context for why this Colwood action plan, why is it needed? David mentioned the IPCC report. I don't want to be a doomsayer, but I recently saw a report saying we've crossed 6 out of 9 planetary boundaries. So the urgency is critical, and that is a really difficult endeavor. I understand what's on your plate, and I'm wondering, how can we as a committee and how can I as a volunteer on this committee support your work in the best, most efficient way I can? Thanks.
Thank you. Through the chair, I think, we're at the very beginning stages really of this work, despite the fact that we've been aware we need to do this work for quite some time. I think that once we have a draft communication engagement plan, bringing it to this group to really dig into is going to be critical. And that can be probably, one of your first really get into it tasks to help us shape the kind of panel you're talking about, likely with partners like Rural Roads or somebody else. From my point of view, and it may be focused on communications, but that would be a key way that this group can get involved as we bring that plan forward. I don't know if you have other points.
Thank you very much, Sandra. Okay. Anyone else like to speak or ask? Yeah, please. Lois, there you are. Your
Yeah,
mic is live.
sorry, at the risk of being rude, I would just say what I'm hearing today, I think some other people have a completely different definition of the words climate crisis. Crisis. That's quite different from what I and perhaps other members of the committee and the public understand to be a crisis. I'm not really feeling a prioritization or impetus towards the finish line. Sorry.
Thank you. Anybody want to speak to that? I think for myself, that it's a really tough thing. And the difference for me from 2022 to 2023 was the word urgency. So there's practical elements though in the lesson. I think that sort of straightened it for me at a council meeting when we talked about the climate action plan and targets for 2050. And the motion I added by 2040, because the recommendation had stated, the motion, I think, believe it said something about 2050 or sooner. Well, 2040 is sooner. It's just, you could say 2040 or soon thereafter, and you'd be at the same place in my mind. Of course, that's not how it works. That motion, that aspect of the motion, the 2040 target was defeated. And part of it, the practical aspect, which was taught to me, is that if we look at, let's say, heat pumps and retrofits in Colwood being, I forget the number, but it's like 60-70% of the homes in Colwood are 60s, 70s, 80s built homes, older homes that need heat pumps. They're running on oil or gas now, typically. If we are to convert to heat pumps, the number of homes in Colwood that need to be done at X number of dollars per house, we need to do about 240 for the so many millions. The data is all quite clearly there. And to do it by 2050 is really aggressive. I think it's about 240 homes. Does that ring a bell to someone in the room, Robert? Yeah. Right, and to convert those homes to heat pumps by 2050 would take something like 240 conversions or retrofits per year from now till then to meet 2050 target. I don't have my calculator here, but it's aggressive. And so to move the timeline to 2040, this is really my point, means that that number needs to rise. It's already a really aggressive target. It's already hard to achieve it. So I think that the question about urgency, I'm not trying to minimize it. I'm simply saying it's a much deeper, bigger discussion than I had thought of. But once in context with the physical reality of making those changes is quite sobering. Just adding that, I'm not trying to answer a question. Devon, please dig me out of this hole. Speak.
Thanks, David. That's a great segue to what I was about to talk about. So thanks for your addition there. So one of the things I was thinking about is like, in terms of metrics, like, do you have I know you have some goals, but do you have, metrics like, what's Colwood's, carbon footprint? And, are we trying to, slow it down, decrease it, those kind of metrics? And then just tag along with what David was talking about, like metrics with targets. And then as the situation gets more dire, assuming it will, that those metrics or targets increase. So the change is proportional to the severity kind of deal. And so that in itself is the teeth that I think Pamela may have been talking about in terms of reports. And I'm going to share this report here with Carolyn about the provincial situations report on that. So yeah, just looking into metrics, targets, acceleration of goals. Thanks for your time.
Thanks for the question through the chair. This is a good question, and I actually meant to bring it up in one of my previous answers that annual reporting is part of the climate action plan and what we intend to do. And one of the things that we will be reporting on is metrics. So we've got some initial indicators and targets in the plan. More are needed. All municipalities are struggling with these metrics because if we're going to do the work to collect the data and to work towards those targets, they need to be really effective targets, and we need to make sure that we're putting our priorities in the right places and making sure that we're creating targets that that help us move forward to the best that we can. So this is an evolving process, but we did put some initial indicators and targets in the plan. Much more to be developed as we go through each of those action items that you find, especially if you look through the table in the back as we put together some of those plans and initiatives. Some of that work is going to be getting some more metrics in there so that we can track, and then we'll be able to, on an annual basis, be able to show not just the public, but ourselves, how are we doing and where do we need to ramp things up, and where do we need to shift focus, or where are we doing really well and we need to keep doing that way. So that is the intention in this work, is to be able to be really on that. So hopefully that's answering your question.
Thank you, Karen.
David, I want to go back to your comment about the urgency and your motion to change 2050 to net zero by 2040. And I think your 400 number came from Mr. Earl said to retrofit the number of homes that would require retrofitting. By then it would mean 400 retrofits a year. But the very first thing we could do is stop putting fossil fuels in homes. And this is where, again, I go to municipal leadership being absolutely vital to the success of this plan, because the province has said, okay, by 2032, we're going to introduce zero carbon step code. Municipalities can do it faster, and we need to do it faster. And that's where we need to show the province how to lead, because net zero by 2050 or zero carbon step code by 2032, that's not leadership, that's compliance. And I just feel like we really need to stress the urgency and try to do better. Thanks.
Thank you, Karen. Emma, please.
I just actually wanted, you said, you echo what was said. In terms of urgency, BC's on fire. We need to do something. And I feel like I completely agree with the idea of showing leadership. Other municipalities have signed on to zero carbon step code. I don't understand why we're not, why it's something that's again being delayed. There are things that we can do right now. I understand the delay for retrofits. Yes, that's going to take some time. We just personally went through it. It's not inexpensive, even with grants. That's going to be slow going, but there are things we can do right now. And so why not do the things that we can now to show leadership? So.
Thank you. Can I just mention something that the CRD, I do sit on the CRD Intermunicipal Climate Task Force. It's quite a mouthful for a name. Sounds like we have uniforms and assault rifles to attack the climate issue. Task force, I don't know. I envision riot police with shields and helmets, but kind of interesting approach, because some people do compare it to the Second World War, the effort that humanity made to confront that challenge. And so here we are at war, and some people speak that way. But the CRD has got a energy navigator program, I believe, which is, you can go there to the website, and it's quite helpful on the retrofit thing. So the importance of retrofit has come up in my world, and more recently, I've done it at my house 10 years ago. So I understand the efficacy of it, and I support it wholeheartedly. The cost of it today is supported by a myriad of supports like incentives. This is where I think, I might be wrong about this, but I think that the idea of a volunteer coordinator type person would be able to have access to that sort of information. I don't know, am I wrong, Sandra? Is that the kind of thing that that person could do, is help to manage the flow of information back to residents about from inquiries? Not really, but anyway, could you speak to that?
We could certainly set it up
Yeah.
to include that, yeah.
So the idea that you have some kind of like this CRD Navigator program is a really helpful guide to steps. It gives people things like websites and things to expect, the process that goes on with your energy audit on the house, then the acquiring of certified trades to do the job, and so on. And it's best to do that first, because if you go into the renovation, you start to rip your house apart and you don't take pictures first, or you don't do the suck test on the front door, you know, the big fan first, then you've missed a step, and somebody's going to have to overlook that or fudge the form, which they might be willing to do. And I'm the first offender of that, because I was already done, ripped apart when I called the energy audit guy. It was just a timing thing. I just didn't think of it. And he helped, and it worked. So these kind of processes worked into this. I'm not sure, Carolyn, if you want to speak to that in terms of, because we're talking about the plan here in different aspects, and this is more of a specific management, or yeah, I guess how you actually structure something, get the information from the public in the first place through an ideas fair or a forum, but this is actually the practical application of something. Yeah, so.
Thank you. I just wanted to mention the Energy Navigator, and just that is a service that Colwood residents and all other residents of the region can not just access information, but a person on the other end of the phone and an email to actually help guide you. And you can come in at it at any part of the process. So if you're near the end and you suddenly come in a stumbling block, you can call the Energy Navigator service, and they can provide support. But certainly we, as staff in developing an implementation plan, are considering, are there additional barriers for Colwood residents that we can support in addition to that regional service? But we also provide feedback, because we're all part of that, regional partnership for programs like that. So I hope that's helpful.
Yeah, very. And I would ask if you could speak to the zero carbon step code process. I think there's something going on in staff, amongst staff right now. So can someone just help the committee understand better what's where that's
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Please.
Yes, so staff have been directed to come back with some options relative to implementing the zero carbon step code. The date that's scheduled for is the fourth quarter of this year. I believe there's a meeting in the near-term agenda. Can look that up if you just give me a moment.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you very much for that. Say something about the near-term and long-term agenda on the right when our package comes out. That's a really informative tool for me. You look on there and you can see what agenda items are coming for which meeting ahead. And so I think what Ian just referenced there, it'll be showing up soon, that report.
Mr. Chair, if I may,
Please.
There is a recommendation in the staff report before the committee for the committee's consideration. Just as a reminder, the committee is an advisory committee, in the sense that the council has to provide the items for the committee to comment on, and this is one of them. So there's an options section in the staff report to give some consideration to, if committee would like to make an alternate recommendation to what's been put forward by staff.
Thank you for that, and timely, I might add. Would anyone like to discuss the options or alternatives presented here, or I suppose make a motion to accept the recommendation as presented. You're making a motion then? You'd like to make a motion for Pamela? Nicholas and the, do we need a seconder for that one? No, we just, the committee doesn't need seconds. Oh, gosh. Take 10 months to get used to it and then you'll have to break the rules again. Just kidding. And so I guess we'll, any discussion? Call the question and then all those in favor? Looks unanimous. So we'll send that recommendation to council. That's our job. Feels good to actually vote on things. That brings us to the end of the meeting here. I think it's a good discussion. It helped me a lot. I appreciate the help from staff who are all in the room for our benefit and the benefit of those in Colwood who are also concerned as we are about moving this whole subject forward in a hurried manner. I will say that since my experience in City Hall started roughly a year ago, that I'm quite, I'm very encouraged by the positive, forthright or progressive attitudes within City Hall, amongst staff, amongst citizens, elected officials, like everyone. I have to say it's more so that way than what my cynical self had come to believe over years of just being a probably an underslept, overtired, sleep-deprived baker. But I think that we need to have that confidence. And if we can move ideas forward, if we can come up with positive ideas and move it forward and get it out of, you know, a little less discussion, perhaps a little more action. I think we all want to do that. And I think that you would have a sympathetic ear. I'm talking to committee members who, although we're advisory basis committee, I get that. And I also understand the urge that is in our membership here that wants to contribute more. We've had a couple of meetings in this past year to discuss items that came to us. In 2 instances, it was considering tree cutting permits. And as important as that is and the support that we gave to parks for that discussion, I think that we want to do more. I get that from you all here on the committee. So I think part of the requirement is, of course, patience in learning the process and how it moves along. Staff are aware of this, what I'm talking about right now. I've had conversations. Everybody's aware of it. Everybody wants to find a path. There's protocols, however, and there's also regional considerations. And I do have to say that I almost never say something or suggest something that I don't get back about 2 or 3 different perspectives that I just had no way of knowing. So I'm trying to encourage you that there's lots of good people that are doing this or helping us with that, and that we are moving forward. When I read the emails that come in and the concerns, I remember the last meeting when Ian Brohill went through a list of 20 some odd items that were actually active in-house. And he didn't pick, that wasn't all of them. That was the 20 he felt we could speak to. And we heard that. And so that's ongoing work. And the money that is spent to make that work possible and the money that we would like to have available needs to be balanced, of course, with this pressure constantly about taxes. I personally don't mind paying my taxes. And I think that Colwood has got a great deal on property taxes, but that's me. And a lot of people don't have that same opinion. So anyway, let's go forward and hopefully you will all put your minds to the task. Perhaps you can, we can engage a little bit more in the service review process. I'm open for questions or coffee or meetups, and we can perhaps keep this committee make this committee, allow this committee even more vitality and more importance in this discussion moving forward. I liked what I heard today. It was really helpful for me. I hope it was for you as well. And beyond that, I don't really have much to say because it's the limitations of an advisory committee are only in the committee structure, but as individuals, we're all able to pursue lots of things. So with that window in, these letters came in as individuals, right? About the Big Ideas Fair from Karen and Charlotte, was it? And that was the pathway through to this committee. Those letters went to council, we referred to committee, and here we are talking about it today. So anyway, I've talked enough. Hope that part wasn't recorded. I know it was. So adjournment. Oh, sorry, Ian, please.
Apologies, Mr. Chair, just to follow up on that question about when the zero carbon step code staff report will be coming back. I was mistaken. It was not included in the near-term agenda that was posted with the council agenda for the October 10th council meeting. Staff will go back and ensure that it's in an upcoming near-term agenda to give the community an idea when that's going to proceed. Our understanding is it is our intention to attempt to bring it forward before the end of the year.
Thank you very much for that. And that was my understanding. And I have to a bit embarrassed because I always move that we accept the near term event agenda. I'm always very proud of the fact that I've looked it over and I missed the fact that it wasn't there. Anyway, thank you for that, and look forward to hearing about. So can I just end the meeting, or do we need an adjournment motion? Okay, and motion to adjourn. Anyone? Motion to adjourn. Devin? Motion to adjourn. All those in favor? Done. Thank you.